Hello, and welcome to Politics for the People. I'm your host, Michael Striano. Thanks for listening and joining in the conversation. You can find links to our Patreon and Instagram in the show notes and sign up for our weekly newsletter. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts to help others find the show. Okay, let's get to it. Our topic today, ranked choice voting. As we discussed in our episode on the Electoral College, there have been and continue to be questions about our voting systems. Unfortunately, it seems the only thing we can all agree on is the current system doesn't work. Voters and politicians on both sides of the aisle have voiced their displeasure with the current systems, even going so far as to propose legislation at least testing possible solutions. The most popular over the past couple of decades has been ranked choice voting, with several cities and states adopting some form of the system for races ranging from school board elections to mayors and governors and beyond. So what is ranked choice voting? How does it work? Where does it come from? And how does it affect our daily lives? Let's start off with a definition. Ranked choice voting is an election system whereby voters rank candidates in order of preference. It can sound a little confusing to be described over a podcast, so we're going to include some visual aids available to the public on our Patreon page, which is linked in the show notes. If you're confused, check those out and let us know if you still have any questions. First, let's take a look at how it works. There are two iterations of ranked choice voting, multi-winner and single winner. For the voter, they're exactly the same. When filling out the ballot, you rank the candidates by preference. First being your favorite, second your next favorite, and so on. You can rank as many or as few candidates as you like, so the flexibility and decision-making power is given to the voter. And that's it. The need for extensive and exhaustive primaries is reduced, and the possibility of runoffs is eliminated. Voters only have to cast their vote once to make their voice heard for a field of candidates. After the votes are cast is when the two systems come into play. First, we'll take a look at single winner. This is applicable for positions held by a single individual, so mayor, governor, or president. When the votes are counted, they are assigned to the first choice candidates. If no one candidate achieves 50% of the vote, the candidate with the lowest total is eliminated, and all the ballots assigned to them are assigned to that voter's second choice. This process repeats as many times as needed until a candidate achieves a majority of the vote. Now, let's look at multi-winner, applicable to city councils or school boards up to houses of representatives or senates, namely bodies with multiple members. This one is a bit more confusing, so you may want to consult the visual aids from our Patreon page. Basically, there are different threshold tiers for each seat, and once a candidate achieves that threshold, they are elected, and any additional votes for them are automatically deferred to the next choice. This continues until all seats are filled. You may be thinking, do we need a whole new way of voting? Can't we just tweak our current system a bit? Sure we can, and we have in some ways. Due to the pandemic, it's easier than ever to vote by mail or early in person, and these choices were so popular in the election, there's the potential they're here to stay. But proponents of ranked choice voting see the potential to fix more than just one problem. Currently, the most common election system in the United States is described as winner-take-all, where you don't have to win the majority of the votes, you just have to get the most votes. If you think about statewide elections, so governors, U.S. senators, or even the president, it's not uncommon for a candidate to receive less than 50% of the vote, but win the election. In fact, this exact reason is what led Maine to adopt a ranked choice voting system for governor. Maine is a state with a particularly strong third-party vote, and of the 11 elections for governor from 1994 to 2014, 9 were won by a candidate who received less than 50% of the vote. This is emblematic of an argument used around the country to dissuade people from voting for third-party candidates. Vote splitting. Vote splitting is something you hear a lot about in the wake of elections dating back decades, but especially in 2016. There were multiple states Donald Trump won by a margin smaller than that which went to the Green Party candidate, Jill Stein. Those who were upset at Clinton's loss pointed to states like Michigan and Wisconsin, where Trump failed to secure the majority of the vote and won with significantly less votes than went to Jill Stein. Of course, this is assuming those voters would have supported Clinton. But supporters of ranked choice voting assert that our government is supposed to be decided by the will of the people, and winner-take-all elections won without a majority of the vote run contrary to that dogma. Another common argument in support of a ranked choice system is it effectively eliminates the threat of gerrymandering, especially to ensure incumbents' victory. Obviously, districts could still be drawn in a gerrymandered way, but ranked choice voting allows for third-party candidates to be competitive. So if the district in question leaned blue, a Republican candidate might not have a good shot of winning, but an independent or Green Party candidate might. Ranked choice voting removes the element of certainty from our current two-party winner-take-all system that has become the focus of so much ire from both sides of the aisle. This empowerment of third-party candidates and elimination of the wasted vote argument is something both sides of the aisle have sought to bring to our voting system. There are arguments against ranked choice voting. For one, voters wouldn't get to see two candidates go head-to-head to compete for support, although there has been data showing that this could actually be a good thing. When candidates are vying in a larger field with ranked choice voting, they're not just competing to be a person's first option, but potentially their second or third, knowing there is a possibility of multiple rounds of counting and recounting. In practice, this has meant that candidates don't want to risk alienating voters by running a negative campaign. Instead, they opt to stay positive and make policy arguments rather than personal attacks. In the end, voters have approved of the system, if only because it encourages a more civil race. So now that we've talked a bit about ranked choice voting, let's look at where it comes from. Even though it's gained popularity recently, the system dates back to 1850s Europe, where it was created as a way of guaranteeing proportional representation in multi-winner elections. The single-winner iteration was developed by MIT professor William Ware in the 1870s. It was first adopted in Denmark, and ranked choice voting gained popularity into the early 1900s as other countries, like Australia, adopted the system for multi-winner elections. The Australian system proved so popular, single-winner ranked choice voting was adopted for their House of Representatives in 1918. Ranked choice voting only recently re-entered the conversation here in the United States, but we actually had it before, and for a time it looked like it was going to really take hold. Ohio was the first state to adopt the use of ranked choice voting in 1915. It started with the city council in some smaller municipalities, before it quickly spread through the rest of the state and to cities in nearby states. Before long, cities in Colorado, Michigan, California, and Connecticut had adopted some form of ranked choice voting. And in 1936, New York City adopted it for school board and city council elections. By the early 40s, 11 states had adopted some form of ranked choice voting. But this would prove to be a high point for the concept. The late 1940s and early 50s saw the successful repealing of ranked choice voting, largely led by political victims of the system, politicians who were successful under the previous winner-take-all system, but lost elections with ranked choice voting. Taking advantage of a lack of coordination and organization in the communities who most benefited from ranked choice voting, typically women and ethnic and racial minorities, these politicians successfully campaigned for repeal in 23 of 24 cities that had adopted the system. By 1962, only Cambridge, Massachusetts retained ranked choice voting for their city council and school board, a system that still stands to this day. Lately, more and more cities and states have shown an interest in ranked choice voting, and it has been adopted in more than 20 states. Even New York City voted to adopt ranked choice voting, and it will go into effect next year. So how would ranked choice voting affect our daily lives? Well, that depends on how and what type was implemented, but in general, institutions with ranked choice voting tend to be more reflective of the populations they represent and encourage voter turnout. The system may seem confusing, but keep in mind, all voters have to do is rank their choices based on preference, and they would potentially only have to do it once. This ranking would also mean that voters don't have to cast their ballots defensively. Because a winner needs 50% of the vote, ranking a third-party candidate over one of the major parties couldn't result in vote splitting. If no candidate received 50%, the candidate with the lowest percentage would be eliminated. On the presidential level, this would open the door to a strong, popular third-party candidate surviving past a major party candidate and possibly winning. More competitive elections are a good thing for the country and for the people, because they help ensure the opinions of the people steer the politicians, not the other way around. Thanks for listening, and a special thanks to our patrons on Patreon for your help in making this happen, and all those who have left us a review. Be sure to check out the show notes, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter and follow us on Instagram at Politics for the People Podcast. Want to help shape the conversation, have a say in episode topics, and get exclusive content, including early access to episodes and live conversations with me? Check the show notes, head on over to our Patreon page, and subscribe for as little as $3. We'll see you Wednesday with our newsletter, and Friday with a brand new episode. Take care.